When Europeans began to explore and thus conquer the world, they never had complete knowledge of the entirety of it. Portions of their maps were always left blank and thus filled with imaginary stories and myths. These narratives were populated with exotic ghosts, mysterious monsters, and the occult. Platonic realism embraces this empty and dark side of those maps, symbolizing the moment when Eurocentric worldview and anthropocentrism encounter their limit. When human anthropos meets the inhuman or more than human. It is where the existential horror begins. Platonic realism summons the ghosts and monsters to demonstrate that there are complexity and nuances within those obscure territories, emphasizing the world without us instead of world for us. It raises the question of agency as much as diversity. It embraces speculative thinking to remind us again that darkness is not empty, but it is information at rest. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for the third edition of the Tehran Summit titled Platonic Realism, Summoning Ghosts and Monsters. My name is Erfan Yassi, and I'm the co-curator of Summit 2 alongside Mattia Una Mathisen Yerede. The third summit is a collaboration with Pachinko, an artist-run space based in Oslo, led by Mathilde Kerbel and Christian Schroeder. I would like to also thank Friedrich Ford Foundation and Art Council Norway for their generous support. The Tehran Summit is an independent artist-run project based in Tehran. Due to travel restrictions to Iran, we relied on the platforms to invite prominent international artists and thinkers from diverse backgrounds to share and exchange ideas. For the summit, we gather for a series of Shab Neshini, which is a Farsi word for soirees, to listen to the invited guest speakers. It is my greatest honor to welcome you to the last night of this series of Shab Neshini, and to host a discussion between two amazing socially engaged artists, Ghazel and Tania Bruguera. Tania Bruguera is an internationally renowned contemporary artist and activist. Her performances and social interventions focus on political power dynamics and their implications for social justice. Her art pushes boundaries by exploring how art can intersect with everyday political realities, aiming to empower individuals to become active citizens rather than passive spectators. Bruguera introduced groundbreaking concepts like Arte Útil, political timing, specific art for the not yet, and Est-ética. Through long-term projects like Cátedra Arte de Conducta, Immigrant Movement International, and Institute for Artivism Hannah Arendt, INSTAR, she has challenged institutional norms and reshaped collective memories, education, and politics. Tania Bruguera's multifaceted contributions to the intersection of art and activism have left an indelible mark on the global cultural landscape. Ghazel was born in 1963 in Tehran and 1966, sorry, in Tehran, and has been in transit between the Middle East and Europe since 1986. She received her BFA and MFA from l'École Supérieure du Beau in Nîmes, and BA in Film Studies from Paul Valéry University in Montpellier. She has exhibited her work extensively around the world since 2000, including international biennials such as the 15th Venice Biennial in 2003, 18th Havana Biennial 2003, the 3rd Tirana Biennial 2005, the 15th Biennial of Sydney 2006, the 7th Sharjah Biennial 2005, the 14th Women Biennial in Ferrara 2010, and the 13th Havana Biennial 2019. Her work has obsessively questioned contemporary migrations, belonging, hybridity, social issues, and effects of war. The work is always directly inspired by her multiple imperfect identities and the social work that she has been doing since mid-90s with delinquent youngsters, street children, migrants, and asylum seekers. And she believes that art can only be a strategy of resistance. We are so happy to have both of you. I mean, Ghazel is not a guest. She's a host technically, but we are so happy that we have both of you. The floor is yours.
Hello, does this work? You heard me? Okay. Okay, hello. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tania, for being with us. I want to give a little version of my biography, your biography by me, which is, okay, you're born in 1968. We're technically the same generation in Cuba. And although you lived a little bit in Lebanon, Paris, and Panama when you were a kid, you lived in Cuba and you left in 1999 to Chicago to get your MFA. So why I said that, it's because for me, it's very important you're not a diaspora artist. Mm-hmm. I'm particularly allergic to diaspora artists, and I'm very honored to have you today. And I wanted to start this talk because actually today I was scrolling Instagram and I fell upon a person I know, a diaspora artist from Iran, and doing publicity for one of her new works, saying that I have my activist life and I have my artistic life, which brings me to you. For you, there's no boundaries. Your art and your activism and your life is the same. And you're completely dedicated to, it's one thing and you cannot distinguish. So for me, when somebody says that I've got my artistic life and my activist life,
Cap d'elles és d'enviar. Si pogués enviar...
Hello? Yeah. So anyway, so that's how I want to start your talk, because it's always been about your story and what you've observed and seen and lived firsthand. And all the dangers you talk about have been your dangers. So that's how I want you to please start your talk.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. I saw some of the previous events that you had. It's great that you're doing this. So thank you. I'm honored to be invited. But no, about what you're asking, I think there is no one way, one formula. I think there are there are different ways to do this. We should not have one specific manner that is the correct one, another one are not correct ones. Also, things shift. For example, I lived in Cuba until 2021, and then I was forced to leave. Forced meaning I negotiated. They wanted me to leave, so I was saying like, okay, you want me to leave, so I want you to liberate these people, so let's exchange. So I did maybe seen too many movies, but I was told not to come back. So I think we have to understand that in activism, in politics, things change all the time. And for me, it's more not what is the correct or not correct, it's what talks to me as a need that I cannot avoid, And sometimes, for example, I came from Cuba in 21 and I needed some time off, for example. And that is also good that we do this. We have to take care of ourselves as well. I keep doing activism, but it was in a very lower, not so much high profile. I was doing a lot of things, but not on the internet, no. Why? Because in part, my situation changed. So before I was a direct person in the battlefield, let's say, and now I became, let's say, a testimony maybe of what happened, but also an ally to the people who stay there. So we have to understand that things change. In my personal case, maybe I do it together in part because in my family my father was in politics, and like he was a diplomat, and my I had a lot of things happening in my personal life because of politics, good and bad. And but also when I came to study in 99 to the US, I was very confused because I saw these artists who were doing art, normal art, let's call it, and then in the weekend they do activism. And I was like, why this is not, I mean, if it's something that important to you, why is not part of your art if art's supposed to be the most important thing that almost, I don't know, you know, sincere thing that you do in your life, you know? So yeah, so I had this situation, but also I realized that there were other things happening in education. For example, I came, and this is very important because we sometimes romanticize, and I'm going to be very self-critical and everything. It is true that doing activism in the actual place where censorship exists, where dictators are, is extremely, extremely difficult, and the people doing that should be, recognized for that. But also, I don't understand how some artists are very, very critical with governments, but they're not critical about the art world. That is completely fucked up. And where you also have certain dictatorship, soft dictatorship, let's say autocracy, not dictatorship, but certain situation in which you are also constrained of your rights, or where you can also not talk about what you think, and I felt that if I was going to be, let's call it a political artist, and I know a lot of people don't like that term, and I use a lot of terms people don't like, which is fine. Sometimes I use it as a way to provoke the conversation, so it's fine. But some political artists should not be political against government. They should be political against anything they see that is not correct, or they think they have an opinion that should work differently, or have a different power dynamic. So yeah, so I feel like in that way, another thing that happened when I was studying was that I realized that I was learning a history of American performance art. Because I went to study because I didn't have performance art in Cuba, so I wanted to be a performer. And I was like, okay, I need to find out a way to disturb this a little bit, because it was assumed exactly the box where you will belong. And I was showing a lot of work done by Cuban artists in the 80s who were doing amazing performances, very political, which is the influence I have as an artist, my main influence. And this is another battle. Sometimes when, yes, all these Western people, white people who are now giving space to other people to talk, but in a way, it's a temporary space. It's a lending space. It's not giving you the space forever. So I think I felt that it was interesting that that I had to fight a little bit about, for example, and also we have to take in consideration that time has changed. Younger generation, they have a very different dynamic. Things are very different. But back then, when you and me were studying, there were a lot of things that were not recognized, that were not talked about. And for example, one of the things I did was to create my own words to qualify what I was doing. Like the first one, instead of calling performance, I call it Arte de Conducta. And I love when you were reading it, because I leave it in Spanish to make it, to create the difficulty to talk about it. That is the same difficulty I had to speak English, So it's a kind of like, it's not a symmetry, but it was kind of an attempt to, and also it was a way for people to ask instead of assume, about where I come from, or why I'm doing this or another one. So yeah.
So you want to give the translation of Arte de Conducta?
So basically, Arte Conducta, you can translate as behavior art, conduct art, and in Spanish, it's great because conducta can be the conduit, but it can be also to be conducted from one place to another, but it's also manners, social manners. So yeah. So I was doing that. And then I start doing, I say recently that this creating names for what I do is a long-term performance, because every time it's hard for me to explain, or I want people to stop, I invent one. So yeah, and Arte Útil is another one, which is great. I love when people pronounce it in Spanish. It's very good. So
and So when you say, when you somehow your art and activism and life is the same, it's where you do it, because you do it also in public spaces. You don't do it only in art spaces. For example,
I do it in both, but sometimes I try art spaces to become a little more politicized by the event. And right now, I have to be honest, right now I'm in a little bit of a crisis, because I was used to go to Cuba, work there, do my actions, come back. But I have a principle that maybe is not a good one, but I try not to talk about a place without being in the place.
yeah,
Maybe it's not a good solution, but you know what I mean? So I would never say an artist, do this, do that when they're in Cuba, because I know what that means. But also I'm trying to understand, right? It's very difficult, but I'm trying to understand how can I take everything I learn as an artist doing activism and art that is political in Cuba, and trying to see if I can apply that to other places where I don't belong, you know, whether it is Europe, United States, or other places, Latin America. So that's a big challenge, you know, right now for me, because I don't want to do art that is nostalgic, you know what I mean? That is trying to remember what it was being there. I don't want to do art that is, you know, gaining from what I did 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you know, so I have to.
I want to be in the now.
I am in the now. Yeah, I'm a performer, so I have to be in the today and here and now. And also here and now, there are many problems, you know, everywhere you go, unfortunately. And yeah. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
sometimes art venues also was a great platform to, as you said.
no, the thing is that it's a protection, because sometimes it's funny, because doing things through art was a protection until governments realized that we were using it as a protection, and they start creating rules and laws and regulations that limit that. You know, for example, in Cuba, they did the 349, which was limiting the way in which you can do projects in your house. You have to always have permission from the Ministry of Culture, or they take your house away, they take your everything that you use for the project away. And they decide to whom they give it, which is very funny part of that law. At the end of the law, they say, and the Minister of Culture decide to whom they will give that they take from you. I'm like, this is complete corruption in the but in the law, no? So yeah, so that I think the one thing I learned quite quickly is like, you learn, but the governments also learn. Like it's a constant running in which sometimes you do something. And I always say this phrase, which is like, the time you have to do your political art is the time of ignorance of the people you're criticizing. Because many times the governments know exactly how to react. Oh, there is a protest. Okay, we're going to do this. There is so they have already learned how to react to things that we do. And I feel this is why I love art, because you can come up with something they don't expect, and they don't know how to react. And by the time, you know, and governments always, they have to sit down, or corporations, they always have to sit down, figure it out. They have a hierarchy. You tell this until it goes to the boss, and the boss go down. And that's the time you have to do your work, you know, like that's it. One day, few hours, you know, because once they realize the damage and they realize what the strategy you use to criticize them, then they come up with an antidote, you know. So this is why I think art is so important for activism, because you can change all the time, and this is yeah.
So that piece, Talon's Whisper in Cuba, and could you explain when that was made, and was it after that law or before?
It was before. It was 2009. It was, let's call it the time where still, because I think everybody, institutions, governments, corporations, they do have a time for, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if it works. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So basically, there are times in which, all times, in which it was easier probably to do things because I think governments and institutions thought that they were too powerful to be challenged, or that they could. And then, this is when a lot of artists, some of whom you have invited here, had the possibility to challenge institutions. So this is this is also the context. This is during the Havana Biennial. During the Havana Biennial, they always, there is always a little bit of, it's not permissiveness, but they always want to show to the world that they are not repressing artists. So you can push a little more,
Pardon? Which year? Havana Biennial? What year?
2009. And then this is the Wilfredo Lam, we should probably know. And it was packed and we did this. And I have to acknowledge that one of the reasons I could do this is because Guillermo Gomez Peña was the main artist invited to the biennial, and he wanted to do a collaboration with me. So having a foreigner inviting me, because I was not invited, so having a foreigner inviting me, it was hard for them to say no or start the why not, so they say okay. And then we, and slowly, it was a lot of, we did a lot of magic to make this happen. So, and then we put a situation where it looks like some person that is important is going to talk. And then what we did basically is to give the microphone for 1 minute to anybody who wants to talk. I had 3 people planted because I also learned from the strategy of politicians, and they sometimes plant people to say what they want. So I had 3 people planted. So they started, and I say enter just when I thought that, just at the beginning. And but something very interesting happened here. I use an image to paralyze repression. I mean, I have to be completely honest. Sometimes I do things most of the time I do things very instinctively. And I can only understand and understand the situation after the fact. So one thing that I knew is that I wanted to put 2 people dressed in the outfit of the military, because I wanted to create in the image something that stopped the repression. Because I don't like to be censored, by the way. I like to do my work. It's kind of frustrating when you censor. And I say, okay, if the guards come and take somebody, they will take also people in this outfit that is their own. So I wanted to play with all these potential impossibility to intervene the image, And also the national TV came, And of course they didn't put anything, but so it was a very well attended. And also, you have 1 minute. So if you do more than 1 minute, they take you out, So we also generated some images that simulate things that happen. One thing that was very interesting to me, and this is the original image, the whole Tattling Whisper series was about how to take an image from TV and make it in the real, So how to translate an image, whether historical or something you cannot live, and then make it part of your reality or part of your experience. And one of the things I wanted to do was that I wanted people to rehearse this arte de conducta, behavior, to rehearse a situation in which they haven't been yet. So when the time of this comes, they are more equipped. For example, in this case, we were used to Fidel being the only one talking. This is the year in which his brother took the government. and he's not very charismatic, so it was very different to have Fidel all the time on the TV, and then there was a vacuum. So I said, what if everybody can be a leader, you know? And of course, this is kind of, some people call it like social experiments or whatever. I'm not bothered by any of that. But something that was very interesting to me, and this is how I'm going to end this. Oh, we also put an actual dove. You see the dove here? You see my cursor?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
you
do.
see the dove here. And this is a very funny thing, like for 50 years or whatever, everybody said, Fidel was the one because the dove came and posed it. And there was all this thing about the train one, it's not, they have some food in here. Like it was all these jokes and mystery. And then I proved that it's possible because these two people actually were magicians, the two people dressing in military outfit, and they were the one who trained the dove to stay in people's shoulders. So it was possible. But I want to finish with one comment from the audience. There was this woman who is one of the best bloggers at the time, Claudia Cadelo, and she participated and said something like normal, like, oh, freedom, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden she got inspired and go back again. And she say, I wish one day freedom of expression doesn't have to be a performance. And it was a slap in my face because this showed me the limitation of art. Because of course, as an artist, as an activist, you're like, okay, I'm doing something amazing. First time, these activists at the time, the bloggers and all these dissidents came to this not the first time, but they happened. They came to this event, institution. So it was a lot of boundaries that were broken. But then there was the realization that really this, at the very end, this is just a performance, you know? And this was very interesting to me, to put me in crisis, of course. But yeah. So it was very interesting to me to have an audience member call me out in a way. And this has happened in different times, to be honest. And I really like when that happens. Yeah. Because as artists and activists, we get complacent very, you know what I mean? We get self-happy or whatever too easily.
And how did the audience get a chance to go up there? Was there a queue?
It's random. And for me, there were moments that was empty, and that was also part of the work because it was showing, I would say it was like a monument to fear, because it was a moment where people were afraid, you know. And it's funny because there was a friend of mine who doesn't speak Spanish, and was all in Spanish. And that's another thing. When I do this kind of work, it's for the Cubans. It's not for the international community. If they understand, great. If not, I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm sorry to say that. Of course, I try when I do my lecture, my talks, to explain and to share the experience, but it is really something that I have very clear. My work is not for a generic audience. I target a specific audiences. And then you have people who are secondary audiences, you know, that either know about the work because rumor, because photos, because press or whatever. But I have a very specific group I work for, the projects, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, so now it brings me to the second thing, you know, I can't remember, self-sabotage.
See.
Because they're the
audience. You took the very tough ones. Okay. I'm going to share again. Good. I didn't expect less. Okay, so this is self-sabotage. This is a piece I did in the Venice Biennale. There was this friend of mine who did this project, J. Castro, who did this emergency pavilion.
Yes, my friend also.
Yeah, yes. And he did this amazing project called
Pabellón
de Urgencia, Pabellón de Urgencia. And then he said, "Oh, will you come?" I said, "Yeah, great." And then I have a friend. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is like in 2 months. I have no idea, no production budget, nothing. Is like, what is this? And then my friend is like, "Why don't you do the piece of self-sabotage?" Because I did it twice. I did it first in at that time I was exploring the idea of lecture performances and stuff like that. And I did it first in Paris, where I was living at the time. I was teaching, so I was part-time there. And I gave a lecture, and I used this as an illustration of my point. So basically, this is, and interrupt me if you have any question, anybody. So basically, this is 2000 and, can't remember. 2000, well, it was, we'll figure it out in a minute. So basically, this is a different time. Again, I want to say this for young people who are here. These are times, and I think it's important when I'm teaching, I also tell my students this, you need to locate the work in this. If it's a political work, you have to locate it in the where and when, not only where, because you need to understand what people are reacting to politically, no? And in this case, I say, okay, I said, I'll do it. And in this case, I was like, okay, the Venice Biennial is impossible at the time. Now I think this last Venice Biennial was very political, but it's very, very difficult. Sorry?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
So basically this, at that time, it seemed impossible to make something very political there because it was very commercial. Even when it was not commercial, there was very good work, maybe experimental work, but too many parties, too many after parties, too many, enjoyment, and too many art world people together. So it's very hard to do something political. And I say, okay, I want to talk about the limits of politics in art and this idea of that if you really believe in something, you have to go to the last consequence. And of course, the way I illustrate that is with this. So the last consequence will be losing your life. And then what I did is I basically played the Russian roulette. I had a little text, and every time I stop the idea, I play. So there was like 3 times. Hey, you want to say something?
Yes, I mean, for real. You're not acting. There was really a
For
bullet.
real, for real. And maybe one day somebody will find it because we throw it away in the water close to where we exhibit. Because also it was illegal to have this. So yeah, basically, and it was very funny because we had to tell the organizer it was fake. So they let us do it, but it was real. So yeah, it was a little back and forth. And then, yes, I played the Russian roulette. And then I actually always, after I finished, I thought, oh my God, if I have died, I will be just another joke in a party. You know what I mean? That's how the art world works. Oh, do you see? Somebody died today in a performance. So that's the kind of superficiality I wanted to highlight and the lack of commitment. I miscalculated something here, which is friendship. There were a lot of friends in the performance, and some of them got upset because they felt that, what doing that to them. And yeah, so sometimes I am my own brain and don't think. I think this is the only piece, one of the few pieces where I don't think so much on the people, the audience. But
yes, that's what I want to ask, because the audience, nobody knew you had. I mean, the audience didn't know you're going to do the Russian roulette, so it's very shocking.
Jota knew. Jota knew. I told him that he knew. He was a comeback.
But the audience didn't know.
Nobody knew. They knew. And also the other thing I did is that I wanted to not leave any trace. So I didn't want to make a photo that then we printed and we put it on the wall or leave the table with the thing. No, I said, I do this, and as soon as I finish, everything disappears. The table, everything, microphone. So I didn't want to create a kind of, adoration for the object or this kind of fetishization, So that's something I do with most of my work.
The audience find out that it was not it was a real gun, and you could have died. You could have shot
Not
yourself.
everybody, I mean, people who know me, they imagine, but other people thought it was fake. Like I could not, and I wasn't like, okay, guy, look, this is real. I didn't do that. I just put the thing and, and I think many people who know me, they knew. They knew for sure, but the other people, I don't know if they, and it was kind of intense, because some people were crying. It was a little intense. So I feel this is in a way a failed piece, because I work with the audiences and I work for the audiences. And in this case, I didn't thought so much about it, so I didn't get the behavior, that I, but also talking about behavior, I did this piece in the Pompidou in 2010. They invited me, they had this thing where you can work with a collection. So I decided to work with the collection of video, the media collection, because the Pompidou is the first one in the world who started collecting DVDs and all of videos and all of that. So my proposal was that I wrote, which is interesting that you didn't receive the letter, but I wrote the artists in the collection asking permission to copy the piece in the collection. And these are the answers. Some people were yes, some people were no, some people, there was this guy who was one of the original people doing video art, and who said, yes, that's exactly what we did it in video cassette, so everybody can reproduce it, blah, blah, blah. And then there were other people like, no, my work is very expensive, so I don't want to do this because it will damage my, prices of my work. And this is an interesting piece for me because it's not a piece criticizing the institution. It's criticizing the artists. It's kind of a self-reflection of how we are part of this, complying in this kind of situation. So basically, the whole down part of the museum became like a storage where you could see the videos that we got permission to copy. And then we had all of these editions of work by different artists, and we sell it outside for €1, And it was quite interesting because a lot of the museum was a little nervous at the beginning because they thought they will have trouble. So I said, don't worry, I'll do it on my own. You say you're responsible from the inside and I'm responsible from the outside, and you didn't know anything. So I think it was interesting, and some people came every day because every day we had new artists coming out. And it was funny because we pirate kind of in a pirate way. And then at the same time the show was happening, I was in the house making the copies with this machine that we rented. So it was quite, I just wanted to show that to talk about the idea of not only criticizing governments or institutions, but also be a little self-critical,
What happened to the money you made? The €1?
Oh, the money, I was teaching at the time in Paris. So my students work on that, and they got the money. They got the money. They did an okay money, you know. And also sometimes there was only one last video of the artist, and people were buying it. Usually it's €1, but I think they bought some things were a little expensive. Yeah. I'm glad you laugh, because for me, my work is very funny. Nobody sees it that way.
Because I think maybe they didn't give you mine because it was an installation.
But that's the thing, you can get away
No,
with
I don't know how I would have reacted if you wanted to sell it for €1. But anyway, okay.
No, but I do think that my work is very funny, but it's not a funny, I always say that I don't laugh in advance. You know, I don't laugh in advance thinking, oh, how bad I am, I'm going to do something. I laugh at the end, you know, if it works, of course. Sometimes I don't laugh, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but, okay, if we go back to those other pieces that were more intense, let's say, you have an important role, and you always had an important role in Cuba. That's why you cannot go back to Cuba now. And
not only me, there is a whole generation that was exiled, forced to exile, and who, at least not in the near future, is able to go back at all. And these are people who, and also the government in Cuba has learned, like has done this crazy law where, I don't know if they're going to do it, but they say they can judge you in absence. Like if you're living somewhere else, so they can judge you in absence, and yeah, and stuff like that. So I don't know, they have a lot of crazy. Our drama as activists is that Cuba has a beautiful weather. So people always confuse good weather with good government.
Exactly. Well, well, maybe now I can talk about that experience we talked about yesterday. For example, when I was in the Havana Biennale in 2003, a lot of people were telling me, because I had just done the Venice one, and they're like, why do you go? You shouldn't go because of the government. And I said, well, I want to go because of the people. And I was happy I went because of the people, because I was living with Cubans and, you know, working with some people, and, you know, met someone like Humberto. But anyway, it was a very interesting experience, because the people came, you know, to see, and it was free, and it was very interesting. But when I went back in 2019, it had become the bling bling, glossy, pink and yellow, whatever, biennial. The only interesting thing that happened was Humberto's piece, which was magnificent. But then it was I don't know, it was like a whole, how do you say, a spectacular, entertaining, you know, kind of biennial that you have all around the world, saying that, oh, we're so great. And the tourists were there. You know what I mean? The people were not there anymore. And that was very upsetting for me, because I did not.
And the one after that, that we didn't want it to happen after COVID, is one where they were using the Biennale to whitewash what is happening in the country. And we had like several artists in prison. I mean, they never put me in prison long term, because they told me like they don't want me to be, they know what they're doing. That's the other thing. Like when my interrogators say, we are never going to put you in jail, or it's because we don't want you to be the Ai Weiwei of Cuba. I was so offended, because I don't want to be Ai Weiwei. So I took it from another way. But the thing is, they know exactly what they are doing. They know exactly the consequences of what they do, but nevertheless, they do it. So I want to thank all of the people who actually signed and didn't go. Some of them were invited, because we had several artists in prison, some in house arrest, like I was and other people were, but some people who are still in jail today, you know, Emmanuel, Osorbo, other ones, they're still, and then people were like, no, I want mojito. And this is interesting, because I've been in both sides of this, and I always as an activist, I always say what I think for me works. I never impose to anybody. I think it's everybody's conscience to do what they want. But I've been in both sides because I've been in the side where some people told me, yeah, I want to go because I want to make a difference, which I have done as well. But then you have to ask yourself, how ready are you to make a difference? Until where are you going to push to make a difference? You know, are you going to make a difference because you are there and tell somebody in the ear that this is not right? You know what I mean? Are you willing to be in your work talking about what is happening? Are you willing to, in your presentation of your lecture, talk about it and embarrass the people, you know, who are doing this damage? So it is interesting because I'm not against having privilege. What I'm against is not to use your privilege in the right way. You know what I mean? And the only way for me to use the privilege to lose it in the process. You know, you really have to lose your privilege in the process. That's the only way you can use your privilege. When you put it at risk and you lose it, you know? So, and it's because the only thing they want is not to have any scandal, and this is why you need to say the things, you know? And I've been in the same place. I also go to other countries, and I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of that. So for me, it's a challenge, but I always try to do work that is not only related to the place, but related to my own personal history or the history of my country. You know, for example, I went to Chile, and it was not about Chile. It was about the relationship in Cuba and Chile. You know, so I always, because I don't feel equipped to go to Iran, to anywhere, even Germany, even the United States sometimes, and say what I think people should do, because who am I, you know? The only thing I can do is to create connection that make people aware of things, you know, that either happened before or will happen again. And this is difficult, you know, because at some point there was this parachuting artist methodology that everybody was doing, you know, and you get invited here, you get invited there. And now, for example, I have a very big problem because I got, there was this grant that was given to several artists to go to Latin America to do a project. I did the first project, and then I realized it's not correct. I should not do this project. Because what am I doing? You know what I mean? So this is what I am right now, trying to figure it out, how to criticize the grant itself. You know, why they give it to us and not give it to people who live there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know? Why give it to us? And this is not a bad grant because, for example, in my case, and I think all the cases, part of the budget goes to the institutions of the places, which is great. So it's not an extraction situation, but you give money. So your project is self paid, so they don't have to lose money, you know, to work in your project, which is a great already step, you know. But yeah, so I think this is challenges. I don't know. I don't know if other people have other questions. I can show more work if you want. So
I don't know. Efon, how is the timing? I don't know.
It's been almost an hour.
So you want to show more work, or?
yeah, I can show, let me see. There's
Recent work?
also, yeah, there is, and also, of course, the work evolved because I've done some things before, something after. I want to show you works that probably I cannot do anymore, you know. So let me show this. For example, I have this. This is a project. The other thing is I separate my work between short term and long term, because I understand that social change is not something that happened overnight or in an opening. So this is a project I did, Cátedra Arte de Conducta, These are some of the artists who now are very well-known artists. And this is a project that probably now I cannot do. And this is the work of one of the artists. We had this, you know, and basically what I did, at some point I felt that I have nobody to talk about because the Biennale, because the market arrived to the Cuban art. I was not a commercial artist, so I don't have much to show with them or share. So I wanted to create like my own, group or whatever. So we created this school of Arte de Conducta where we were doing a lot of like social art, political art, If somebody knows how to read this and tell me what that flag say, I will love it. Because I spent 20 years waiting for somebody to translate this. I don't know if it's something that is readable.
It's Arabic, right?
It's supposed to be Arabic.
I think it's backwards, first of all,
Maybe
and
it's
then
backwards,
I
okay.
think it says Allahu Akbar. I think so, which is something that you see on Iraq flag.
Okay. Bueno, this is some of their work, and yeah. So I think this is one piece I did. Another one is that I like a lot, because the other thing I feel that I do in my work is try to make it confusing. Meaning that I want people to be clear of the subject that I'm trying to talk about, but the form to be something strange, in a way, or something you have to negotiate. So basically here, this was in 2005, and Putin was just started to be in power. And I knew back then already that it was not going to be a good idea. And then they invited me to the Moscow Biennial, So what I did is I was walking one day on the Revolution Square or whatever, Red Square, and I found these people who were with these monkeys, with the Mad Kids dress, and they were taking photos to the people on the street. So what I did is a very simple operation. I brought them to the museum. I took the one room nobody wanted because it was all deteriorated. We make it even more, old and damaged. And what we did was family portraits, We did family portraits with the audience. What happened, and it was very funny because people were like, oh, I want the monkey, no, I want the eagle, because we also had eagles, And then what people didn't realize, here's the eagle. And what people didn't realize is when the photo was given to them, we printed right there. This monkey was really nasty, I have to say. And they got these family portraits, but behind them, it was the portrait of the person who created the KGB, which has a different at the beginning. So this is another thing I use sometimes in my work. I use the same strategy of politicians. Like, for example, politicians, and this is the only project in which I use a spectacularity in purpose. Like, my work is not spectacular. It's very, should be like normal. But this is the spectacularity of, oh, these monkeys, oh my God, this eagle, like people were so focused on what to do and the opportunity of having something out of normal that they never saw the portrait, and then you have people like this who are very happy to be with that portrait, but normally people were like not even paying attention, and this is a piece in which I wanted to show, let's say, with an image, what was happening, people were not paying attention. And there was two ways to see the work. One was outside through a peephole, or if you enter, but you never saw anything. With the peephole, you saw only a person talking, but you didn't see the animals. So you missed it, So that was a period of my work where I was really trying to understand how images work, Yeah. and the experience. This is another piece. Oh, this is a piece I did in Chicago that I really, really like. It was when Obama was elected. And of course, for me, of course, I was very young and naive, maybe. But I was so excited that Obama was elected. You know, like everybody was like, oh, this is going to be different. And then it was the first time, let's say, that somebody you think is like you or whatever is elected. So I wanted to think about not being in the opposition, but being on the other side, no? So I invited Bernardine and Bill, who were part of the Weatherman Underground group. And these were the most wanted fugitive from FBI for almost 40 years. Now, of course, by this time, they already came negotiate with FBI. Some of them did some time in prison, some of them didn't. And by this time, they already have like a normal life. They're academics, teaching, and so on. So I wanted to do this, this piece, and the piece was very simple. I asked them one question. I say, what do you do when somebody you agree with is in power? Like, what would you do? Having these people who put bomb, who, you know, who are really, you know. And then they're a good speaker, very motivational speaker. And then I had 3 people planted in this, not this guy volunteered, but I had 3 people planted in the audience who the only direction was, if you hear something you don't agree with, just stand up and interrupt. And it was amazing because I wanted to think, at the time I wanted to think exchange the role of power between the speaker, like me now that I'm talking, and the audience. And it was amazing because really they could not talk anymore because the audience started fighting with each other and talking and discussing. And it was quite beautiful, to be honest. And the best part is that this took part during our historian event. They were doing these lectures and I invited me, and this is the lecture I did. And it was very funny because people the next day on another panel, they forced me to say if it was an artwork or not. And of course it was an artwork, but I didn't want to say it was an artwork because that's the game, you know, not to look like an artwork. So yeah, so these are all the pieces I wanted to, and whoever wants to ask a question.
Yes. How does it work, Erfan, now for the question?
Yeah, sure. If you have any question, you can write it in the chat or raise hand. I do have some questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to know more about all the concepts that I've created, including Arte Útil, political timing, specific art, art for the not yet, which is the title of this talk, and Est-ética, which I think is an iteration of Est-ética. Right?
Yes.
Can you talk about them? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, of course. Of course, this come out of my inadequacy to speak about the work. So it's not, it's more showing what I cannot do than what I can do. But the idea, I think in a way, I mean, at the time we didn't talk about decolonizing or anything, but I think it was a kind of a decolonizing gesture on my part, trying to figure it out, especially many of them, except 2, everything else is in Spanish. So it was kind of claiming that. So I feel that, for example, political timing specific is something that I've been interesting enough, I've been trying to do again after a while. And political timing specific is an artwork where you not only do it in a place like site specific, but you also do it in a very specific political moment, meaning a moment where probably people have not agreed yet if it's a good or bad thing, or people have not taken side yet. So it's more when things are going to happen. or just happen and you just confuse. So for example, I did a piece, let me see if I have it here. I did a piece that was, well, that piece about speaking 1 minute, it was a little bit like that because the president say, oh, everybody can say what they want, pretending he's democratic, but of course it was a theater. So that's why I did that piece. But for example, no, I don't have it here. I did a piece where was, for example, I did a piece where it was, for example, the elections in Mexico, and the piece was about the immigrants, not the immigrants, Mexicans in the United States, but the immigrants coming to Mexico who are treated worse than the Mexicans in the United States, you know? So things like that. So these are issues that have not polarized yet the people, because they are still trying to figure it out, what position to take, etc. And also there are pieces that will look different if you do it 2 years later. For example, if you do a work before Trump is elected, it could be a joke. If you do it while he is in power, it could, or now, you know? So I think it's understanding that the political energy of the work is not only a decision of the artist, but it's also in relationship with the political situation and the people's emotional relationship with it, for example, no? Art for the Not Yet is more about work where you are, I can show a work later, but it's a work where you are trying to jump one step. Let's say, for example, you do something that you know is going to be censored. So you do it in a way, when you prepare the work, you do it in a way that you jump the censorship, you know? So they don't know how to react, and then you already know how they're going to react, and then it changes the dynamic, because normally artists react to everything, but in this way, they have to react. Those who are oppressing have to react, because you already took them away. You're doing something that you know is going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, you know? So I think this is very quickly way to explain it. And Est-ética is something that I working on right now, because it's trying to see if we can, and I think yes, but trying to see if we can and how we can have an aesthetic reaction to an ethical situation. If we can say this is art when we see some ethical situation. Of course, it's not the normal ethical, like, oh, I'm good, I have the woman, an old lady cross the street, you know, like, it's not that kind of thing. It has to be something that really shakes your beliefs or make you question what you think is ethical or not, you know. Somebody?
Pachinko? Una?
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Tania and Ghazel. Thank you so much, both of you, for this talk. Tania, you said something, I might have like not noted it exactly in the way you said it, but you said something like talking also about how things used to be, that white people would be giving away their space temporary, and also how art venues used to be a place of protection, but they're not like this anymore. I was wondering if you could like expand a bit on that, and also to both of you, I guess, since you are both working in this intersection between art and activism, like how can we sort of recreate those places of protection or find new ways of protections and resistance in today's contemporary society? Of course, I'm not expecting you to like answer it, but I would be interested to hearing both of your talks.
And also an answer is a relative, of course, of the place, on the culture, but generalizing, at least in the West, I don't know in Middle East, or I don't know in India or Southeast either. I don't know how it is there, because I haven't been enough or recently. But at least in the West, the kind of pampering, the institutions do with the audience. They almost treat them like babies, you know. And why? Because they need numbers, they need to have a lot of people coming, and the measures of success is not if the work is good, but how many people came to see the exhibition, and so on. Plus, the fact that I think there is a new generation that is understanding, thank God, how to care for themselves and how to protect themselves. But I think that it has gone too far. It has gone too far. The way I see museums, art institutions, even the street for art as an art space, is a place where you can transgress, because there is a kind of silent agreement that you enter a museum to have an experience that is out of normal. You're not going there to see the biggest TV video. You don't go there to see the biggest, I know this was coming. I'll talk about it, yes. So, you know, so it's not about, you know, the painting you cannot have in your house. It's about, what is it? Oh, can you hear me? Okay. So it is it feels like an agreement between people saying, okay, we are in a safe space where you enter because you want to have an experience that is not what you do every day. It's going to be intense. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you uncomfortable. And this, at least in the West, has changed very much. And people get scared very quickly, you know. And I think this is very problematic. Half of the work I show you today, I could not have done today. No, because, oh my God, like, you are offending this person, you're offending. Yeah, and I mean, the thing is to be for me, is to be responsible about what you do. I remember I did a project in Colombia where I distributed cocaine because it was a critique about what is happening there and the artists who came and go. It's a complicated piece. And then I had a friend who called me and say, run, get out of there because they're going to kill you because they are so mad at you. And I say, no, I did it. I have to stay and take responsibility and talk about it. So I think it's not so much about don't talk about this, don't talk about that, because it's going to be, people are going to be mad, angry. But it's about the artists having the responsibility to stay after they do it. You know, and generate situation where you make sure people are safe, the people who collaborate with you are safe, making sure that nobody's going to go to prison, like in Germany, you ask me, that, you know what I mean, that everything is taken care of. So it's like when you do a painting, you don't finish when you paint, you finish when you put the final layer of protection for the piece, you know? So I think it is about how the institution have to understand, and the artists as well, that there is a big self-censorship. And this is why we complain about institutions looking like art fairs or, you know, and things that are, I don't know. That's my position. I know it's not a popular one and not everybody agrees, but I think it's very strange. Like, I'm preparing a project for an institution and I don't know if I want to work with institutions. I don't know. I'm not sure at this moment because it's so much negotiation about so many stupid things, you know, things that really are not relevant, you know, really are not important, and it's more about them not to having a trouble than, you know. So I think maybe they should have an insurance against trouble, not only against fire. I don't know. And also they have to please the people giving the money. And those people, sometimes you have really good boards and really good people who know about art, but most of these people don't know nothing about art. And the work they have in the house is not the work we do, you know? And many of these people think the institution they give money to is their living room, you know?
Yes.
They own them just because they gave some money. So I think we are in the middle of a lot of tensions. A lot of people are very nervous about money, market. Small institutions are disappearing, you know. It's a very difficult moment, and I'm not the only one. I have the mismo Santiago itself. Probably he cannot do half of the work he did in the 90s and the 2000s. That was really pushing boundaries, you know. And yes, it's okay that people are angry at you. It's fine. You know, it's okay that people don't like what you do. That's fine. I'll tell you one thing. Now, I realized one thing that really saved me mentally as an artist, because of course I did work and I wanted recognition right away. Like everybody. Everybody wants to do a work and they applaud after it. One day I realized that my work needs 3, 4 years, 5 years to be understood. That's fine, you know? That's
Even
really
more.
fine. Sometimes more. But you know what I mean? Like you need to also, as an artist, understand what are you doing and how are you conveying this with the audience, and understand maybe you are a successful artist that get right away understood and liked, but watch out. But being liked too quickly is also a little, I don't want that, you know? I mean, sometimes you have like, I did the date and it's like, wow, everybody loved it, you know? And it was like, okay, boing, I touched something there that I don't even know what it was, so I cannot do it again. But that was one time, and I came home very preoccupied. I was worried that why people liked it. I'm like, this is not, something is wrong here. Like, why people like it so easily, you know? And for example, another thing I always think when I do my work is how difficult it's going to be to sold, you know? If it's something that is too easy to sell, I'm doing something wrong. I mean, not that I sell, because I don't sell. I don't have a gallery. I don't, but you know, like even thinking, okay, if somebody comes, and it's not because you want to be difficult for being difficult, it's because you want to create moment of thinking of the production that you're doing, moment of thinking of the subject, you know? And thinking is not something that happens when you're happy or very right away, you know, or quickly. Because if you agree so quickly means that you have said the status quo. You have said what everybody wants to hear. And I don't think that's what a political artist should do best. I don't know. Because then it's kind of propaganda. Everybody's happy. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, we agree. So I think in a way, the challenge of being a political artist or people who are activists and artists is to do art for the not yet. So before, like to do art not for now, doing it for now, but for what's going to happen in 5, 10 years, you know? Imagining what will be the world in 5, 10 years and do the work of that moment today, you know? So it's playing with time. As and also in the case of Art for the Not Yet, it's a way to escape as well, politics. And try, for example, when I did the INSTAR or all this other project, I'm like, I'm not going to wait for things to change. I'm going to live as if already the situation is the one I envision or I desire, you know? Freedom, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Would Tania like to speak about the recent?
I need to know, Blessy, exactly what you want to know, because that is a very complicated piece. So what exactly you want to know? No, I'm okay. I said today that I was going to talk about everything, so I'm not fine. So you want to know exactly about how it was disrupted. Okay. The piece I did at the Hamburger Bahnhof was a very complicated piece. I'm in the process of writing about it because it's a very complicated piece. And it's a redoing of an older piece. So already a lot of, and it was very funny because people who wanted to condemn the project, they were like, oh, you came here to what's the name, to provoke us and like, you know, play with our feelings. We are so sensitive about what's happening in Germany right now. And I say, I'm sorry, I've been working on this for 1.5 years. So before October 7, before you start censoring everybody, before, you know, so that didn't work. So it was very satisfying to be able to we say in Spanish, say, take the bat and the, you know, all these arguments. So to blame the artist and to focus on the artist instead of what the artist was saying or what the art was showing, you know. And I kind of remember, I kind of think that this piece did the same thing that I was saying before about the microphone piece, that the audience put the work back to reality. You know, that interruption put the work back to reality. I kind of jinxed it because the night before I talked to my sister and say, I feel so good. This is like magical. You know, like everything is happening so nice and people who are censored are talking and Masha Gessen and this and Candice Bryce and the other one and Barbara and like everything is so perfect. Like it was like, and then I was like, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is wrong, you know, like I didn't, and I think that the activists, I invite the activists. I invite them and I did a beautiful performance, and a group of them that I didn't know, but it's okay, they were invited, came back, you know, to make a protest. And I think that I wrote about this a little note. I say the title of the work is When Your Ideas Become Civic Actions. Self-explanatory. So I think they were the only ones who I mean, I think they actually did the job, you know, the assignment. But also it show, I think the whole thing show the state. This is political timing specific work. And the biggest challenge we had is like, how can a piece that is from 2015 in 2024 is going to work? And then, I mean, it worked because we did it political timing specific. That was, and also in that sense, this kind of work have no good or bad. It's not wrong or right. It didn't work or it worked. No. It's almost like if you take a photo, an emotional picture of the moment and the place, you know? And this is what it was. Maybe if we do the work again in a month or two, it will be different because the emotional landscape has moved. The conversation has evolved to other areas. So the photo will look different, you know? Maybe there is no intervention like this, it will be a different one. So I think this is, that piece was what it was. For me, the most important part is to say, because apparently I realized later that it was not very well conveyed, I closed the piece. And the reason I closed the piece is because I wanted to close the automatic response to what was happening in Germany. The automatic response is the institution cancel the work. Then there is a conversation about censorship. Then the people who were disturbing this offended the institution, so they have to be persecuted. And then you enter this dynamic that it was almost automatic of more hate, with more violence, with more. And I wanted to do something that make that impossible. So I say, I close it, and it's not for political reason. It is for aesthetic reasons. So in that way, I didn't authorize the museum to go after anybody, because I am the artist and I was not offended by anything. It was not a political situation. It was aesthetic situation, meaning there was a break of protocols of the direction of the piece. If you stay more than 1 hour talking and don't give your microphone to the other person, that's a breaking of a protocol. And if you don't let somebody speak, you break the protocol, because the whole thing is like one thing is after the other. For example, every time somebody was missing, like sometime at 2 in the morning or 5 in the morning, there were people who didn't come for the talk. I read, because it was a situation where the machine has to be working all the time. It could not be 1 hour without reading, you know. So if that happened, it's a break of the protocol. And I think it was, for me, it was a solution to not judge people for their politics, but see the aesthetic of the work, like what is the aesthetic of the work. And why? Because they were going to go after them. And as an activist, I could not have somebody working in my project, either spontaneous or not, who is going to end in jail. That's something I could not accept, you know. So I stay a little longer than I suppose. I changed the ticket and everything, and then I stay a few days later, and I didn't leave until I was sure that they were not going to prison, that, you know, like I had to do the cleaning up. This is the thing that you have to do as a political artist, as a responsible. You have to clean up, you have to talk to the secretary of the Minister of Culture, make sure that this is not going to happen, that this is until he, like all of this to happen, you know. And so far, they have not been put in jail because of my work. And that's another thing I told them. I told some of the activists, I didn't talk to them directly, but there were others around them that knew them. So I told them that if they ever been judged or detained because of my project, and I can only be responsible of my project. Of course, I can be solidary with other projects they do, but my responsibility is with my project. And if something happened, I will actually go back and participate it if I need to help with a lawyer or be in the trial or whatever. So I make sure I was available if something happened. Nothing has happened. I don't think it will, hopefully, at least in this sense. And of course, I've been looking at what happened. They got in trouble after Berlinale. There were some of the same people. So yeah, so I think it's about being responsible for what you do. It's not being like, oh, I'm a bad guy, and then run, you know. You have to stay and face it. Yeah. So yeah, but I think this piece is quite complex, and it was interesting because there was a tension between opacity and transparency in the project that was very, very interesting. Very interesting. I want to talk about in this text I'm doing, because I wanted to do this like live feed, the whole project, but other people thought it was not a good idea. And then I was like, okay, my goal is to see how much can we do this? Like how many, like from 100 hours, how much can we do it? If we have done it direct live stream, maybe we don't last an hour, because the first thing I said when I opened was ceasefire, you know. And that was in a moment, not like now that everybody's saying ceasefire and everybody goes, you know, it was a moment that it was a little tense. People left, actually, some people left. Some very important artists left when I say that, and, you know, so it's fine. The problem is we cannot be loved. We don't do art to be loved. We do art because we have to, because we need to take something out of inside of us. But if you do art to be loved, then ceramic is a good idea.
That was
Roasted.
Never did.
Oh my
Sorry.
God, that was amazing. All right.
I love
Una,
ceramic. I don't have nothing against ceramic, and I work with clay a lot, so that's why I can say it. But
all right,
That was
Una.
all right.
That was yeah, that was
Fun.
amazing answer. Una, you have a question? Una, do you have a question, or I thought you raised? Okay, so my question is a bit general, but since you're sort of you criticize artists and the art institutions and everyone.
and myself too. I also
Yes,
criticize
exactly.
myself.
So you're
I'm the
not just
hardest. I'm the
Yeah,
hardest on myself.
yeah.
Like
You're not just
imagine finishing the performance of the horses at the Tate and go home and say I did something wrong. Okay, so I'm very hard on myself too. But yes, yeah.
since you have this you look at the world through this lens of criticism. I want to ask if art really can change the world, or is this just a myth that artists just tell themselves?
I of course I've been always saying yes, it can change the world. I've seen it done. I've seen artists in Cuba in the 80s, and I was a young student, and I admired them greatly because I saw them changing the world in Cuba, they're changing the circumstances. The thing is that change is not permanent. That change sometimes is small or very located in a very specific area of society, of things. And also, it is very funny. I heard the other day an artist, a British artist, a very brilliant British artist. I'll remember the name in a minute. Who was saying that the people who can really change the world is all these donors who have billions of dollars, and these are the people telling the artists to change the world and to put the responsibility on us. But I do think we have to be careful about scale and permanence of change, because you can compare yourself to governments, to big institutions. Like the scale is not, like even Banksy and all these people who would work in huge scale. I mean, and part of the reason why the scale is a problem is because when you open yourself to produce in a very big scale, like city scale, country scale, you have to reduce the level of friction of the discourse. So what is really you changing? Because yes, you arrive to more people, you can touch more people, you can make or more people think, but what you make them think about is not as transgressive, because you have to, water it down a little bit, so to speak, to make it more palatable, so people don't have friction with the message. They just have sympathy with the message. And then that's a different way of working, And sometimes when you work against oppressive system, whatever they are, market or, government, etc., you need to understand that they will find a counter solution to your change, So you have to constantly change and change again and look. So that's why it feels like it's not change, That's why it feels. I will defend, yes, art can change the world, because I want people to think that way, so they try, But between us here, you have all these things: size, permanence, and constant. Because the other thing is, let's say that tomorrow you change the consciousness about whatever, some injustice. Yeah, but there's so many other injustices still there, so it is, so it's really not that. Don't tell anybody, but yes, no, it's very difficult. Yeah.
Can I
and
say?
yeah.
But
But we have to try anyway.
yeah, no, maybe arts, like saying performance, oh, that doesn't get that much audiences, but to say personal story, I think that cinema does change, because when I was a student in France in the 80s, even one of the most famous French artists, as a joke, would call me a terrorist at school, art school. And, oh, Ghazel, the terrorist, ha ha ha, is your dad a terrorist? You know, because of the terrorist attacks that had happened by the Lebanese who were pro-Iranian. And one day, Kiarostami arrived, and the day one of his films was shown on French TV, Where's My Friend's Home? Khane Dust Kojast? Everybody in my street in Montpellier, I mean, many people, the shops would ask me, oh my God, we saw this film and everything. Suddenly I became human, okay? With one film, Ghazel was not the terrorist anymore. Ghazel became human. That's the power of cinema, because it reaches more people. And
I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think the visual arts, unless you have a very, like comprehensive image, and they say one image speak more than 1,000 words. Yes, okay, but change is also about narrative. Yes. And sometimes in visual arts, the narrative, who does the narrative? The artist. Oh, I mean, it's super hard, and it also is also more elitist in a way, because stay in museum. Who goes to museum? Like how many? So it is kind of endogamic situation. This is something I also have to all the time. That's why I thought the piece in the Hamburger Bahnhof was great, because it was for artists and for the people in the arts who deal with censorship. So I think it worked well in that sense. But most of the time it's an endogamic situation. So yeah, the change is what really? Are we agreeing? Like you're talking to a chorus, no? You say the choir or whatever. And that's another thing. Like go to a place where people think differently about what you think. So you have to make your argument. But the other thing is, there is recently, in the last 10 years or so, 15 years, a mystification of change, where, oh, change. And then we talk about Rosa Parks, and we talk about Gandhi, and we talk about all like it was magic. And it's not magic. There is a lot of failures in between. There's a lot of preparation. So I think it is also this kind of mystification of change that we need to fight, because it's impossible to achieve. Who's going to be Gandhi today? Or who's going to be Rosa Parks? I mean, that's not, and yeah, and it's the way we tell the stories. I mean, not everybody does it. A lot of really cool guys, girls, people are revisiting those stories and trying to tell it with more complexity. But it's almost like, oh, you wake up today, you want to fight against women abuse, and you do something and it happens. No, this is totally, a product situation. Yeah.
Just building, following what you just said, Tania. I think Kiarostami used the medium of cinema to create a counter narrative and a new landscape. Counter narrative to Ghazel as a terrorist, And I think that's what artists are doing for the most part, creating a new narrative.
Cinema is great.
With one film, he changed the image of Iran with one film, and that's
because
magic.
Cinema has a huge, far rich than visual arts for sure. My other question, I'm not sure if you have enough time, Tania. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good, amazing that you're with us. So I was watching this video of you working on your project, which is the immigration.
Immigrant movement. Yes, I have.
And then immigrant movement, and then you talked about how you're trying to sort of push the definition of art. So what you do is for the most part is art, for the most part is not art. So as an art activist, you're sort of challenging the definition of art, and you're in the moment of transition when not art is becoming art. And I want to ask, like, what's the definition of art? What's something that you would call art? And then there is one thing. So we have three realms: the realm of everyday object, the realm of transition between the everyday object to an art object, and then there is the realm of art objects. But during the Women Life Freedom in Iran, we had these projects that were carried out either by like workers around the country or unknown people, right? But they looked like an artwork. And artists started calling them something that's beyond art, something that you should not define as art, because you are then sort of leashing their power, just bring them back to the realm of art. There is something beyond. So apparently there are four realms: realm of everyday object, transition, art object, and then something that is beyond art. Like, how do you explain art? Then based on that, we can sort of come with the idea of what would be not art, what would be beyond art, what's the moment of transition.
Yeah, I'm going to say something a little kitsch, so bear with me. But I think art is like flowers. So yes, you can cut the flower and put it in your house. And by cutting flower, I mean that you stop the fluid of knowledge that brings the activity that you're doing. You can take a painted or take a photo of a flower, and it's talking about representation of something. And you can pass by and see a flower while you're walking, you know. And I think for me, the art is not where you position the experience, but the experience in itself, you know. So it's not about, yeah, I don't know if that's a little abstract, but I think it's clear, no? So, so it's also, and also I think art, and why I say flower, even if it's a little kitsch, is because the span of time art exists. I don't think that art is eternal. Sorry. I don't think, sorry, I lost you. So I don't think art is eternal. I don't think art is, let's say, a situation that is a condition sine qua non of the thing. Like every time you see this sculpture, you're going to feel art. I don't think so. I think art is a confluence you say in English, of many elements that make you feel in a certain way at some point. And that can last a second. That can last the time you figured out what you just experienced, you know. And this is another thing, and how you use the energy the work is giving you. Because sometimes what is art is not what you're seeing, but the energy that make you do something after you've been in that experience. So I feel that having one definition is killing it. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm being clear what I'm saying, but that's what I think. And it's more about this. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you.
And yeah, and for me, the best work, or what I try to do, is to delay as much as possible the confirmation that is art. Because once you're sure it's art, for me, it's dead. You know what I mean? Because
Yes,
then you don't think anymore. You don't have this openness in your mind of figuring things out. You're like, oh, it's art. So, okay, where this is going, our history, where is it going in relationship with what I know? And then it's a different game, you know?
You don't give an end product, don't give a solution. You open doors, which is what art is.
And
you
this is
open
why
many roads.
this is why it's so hard And it's going to be hard for everybody now in these new moments in art to reevaluate if the work still works, you know, or if it's going to be just a memory that you store about what was possible in another moment in time, you know, because this is the thing. This is why you see an exhibition and you don't care, and then you see an exhibition, I don't know, somebody from 40 years ago, and you're like, oh, I just discovered something. So it is a personal also experience. That's why I don't like when everybody's so happy when something is art, because it's a personal experience. What is the art for you is not for me or for you, you know, like it's a personal experience.
Tania, one question. You know, I mean, do you ever show your old, like now we're doing a talk, you're doing a talk, so you're showing work. Do you ever show them as an archive or an exhibition, the old work? Or it's done,
No.
it's, you
No.
never show it?
Some pieces are done, but for example, when I did it in Germany, it was the redoing of a piece that was 10 years old. You know, so I believe for performance, not in the photo. The photo is like archive, it's a reference and archive, but I don't believe in a photo. I believe in the experience and doing again the experience and then change it because it's not going to be the same, you know. So yeah, but yeah.
Yes, of course. 10 years later was different because of
Maybe
the
it doesn't
political
work.
world. Yeah.
I was so afraid that the piece at the Hamburger Bahnhof was not going to work. I was so afraid. I was even thinking of elements that disrupt the piece in purpose to create some political friction. And then, of course, history happened, thing happened, and then I had to try to moderate because then it was too intense, you know? So, yeah, it's about the end, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what, good.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't see more questions.
Ghazel? No?
No, I'm fine.
All right.
Thank
I think we can wrap it up.
Well,
That was-
very good, and thank you. And I keep seeing all the videos of the past ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much, Tania. That was a great
Same.
ending to the third summit
Yeah.
with Tania and Ghazel. Amazing artists.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
appreciate it. And
Thank you
I
for
wanna,
everybody.
I wanna, yeah, absolutely. I wanna also thank Nato Thompson for introducing us together. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So, oh my God, Humberto Velez just joined.
Just join.
Oh my, oh,
Humberto, querido.
Humberto Velez.
Oh, okay.
Humberto, we are saying goodbye. Can you join us?
Really
Hi.
sorry about this. It just
Hola.
Hey.
Tania, ¿qué tal? Hola, Ghazel, ¿cómo están?
Hola.
Really
Hola, querido.
I just finished my class and I teach teenagers, so they were
Oh,
absolutely, yes. What a shame. Really sorry about this.
you are brave. Those
Nice to
are the hardest audience, teenagers.
Yeah, you know them exactly. Really sorry. Well, lovely to see you at least to say hello.
Same. Keep in
And
touch.
I will.
Qué bueno verte, de verdad.
Igual, mi amor, aquí estamos en Panamá.
Ay, bueno, nos vemos en algún momento.
All right, now we can end the summit.
Now
with
we can
Humberto
end it. We
Velez.
just were
Yes.
waiting for him. Oh, that's
Humberto.
so cool. But you know, this is for me the most important change. We're asking about change, is to have this relationship that we forget so much, you know,
True.
to have relationship between us and to create, you know, kind of sane relationships between artists. So that's beautiful.
Now from all over the world, because Humberto is in Panama, you're in America, I'm in
Yeah.
Paris.
It's fractured, but yeah.
There's a team in Norway.
Norway,
and
Tehran, everywhere.
very, very interesting.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
No,
All
it's
right.
funny because one of the biggest challenges in my work is the audience, and I don't think about generic audience. So when I was doing the Tate project, I spent almost 3 months imagining all the type of audience that could come to see the work, like kids. So yeah, so I think that's the hardest part to do this kind of social work, like public work, not to generalize an audience like a block, So here we are, all of us showing that. Cool.
Amazing.
So
Thank
All right.
Tanya.
thank you so much for
Bye.
inviting me. Thank you,
Bye.
Nato.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. Absolutely.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.